The Government of India on July 1st, 2020 has announced the privatization plans of the Indian Railways. As of now, the government has just asked private companies to submit their interest to run passenger trains. Getting private companies to invest in the Indian Railways is crucial because the Indian Railways needs cash, as simple as that. Even the Government of India is pretty tight on fiscal budget. In simple words, the tax money which is collected by the Government of India is not enough to support the country, which is Asia's third largest economy in terms of GDP. Today, when there is a global pandemic going on, the Indian economy has been badly hit. Businesses and industries have remained shut for over 2 months now. You can also say that we are heading for a bad recession. At a time like this, if you have noticed, from past 3 months, both the central and state governments have indulged in micromanaging the crisis by adding new levels of bureaucracy and laws. So if I have to summarize the government's activities for last 3 months, they have basically reset the society in almost every aspect. In history, we follow the time in terms of before Christ, BCE, and AD, which is Anno Domini. Likewise, the new timeline from 2020 seems to be before Corona, BC, and after Corona, AC. Have a look at this image, you will be able to relate these changes that will significantly shape the world going forward. Anyhow, this can be a topic of another video because there's a lot to cover in that. So whenever the government announces any plan of privatization, always remember the whole idea is to attract investment so that it will bring more money. Privatization also improves efficiency, brings productivity as well as higher profitability. These are some potential benefits of privatization. To be fair, it also has a lot of disadvantages, but we as citizens will trust our government to make a fair cost and benefit analysis before taking any steps. Because we have to trust and assume that there are enough smart people in the government who will make better decisions. Anyhow, I hope you have understood the purpose of privatization. When it comes to Indian Railways, the plan to allow private entities was started back in 2019 with a bidding process in December 2019. The first bidding process saw about 20 companies. These include Adani Ports, Tata Realty and Infrastructure, SL Group, Bombardier, Alstom, Talgo, and Macquarie Group. 4 of them are foreign companies, but that was before the pandemic. Now after pandemic, will the same private companies bid? At this point, it is not clear yet. Anyhow, the main point of this video is to tell you the reasons behind the privatization plans of the Indian Railways. I have broadly categorized the reasons based on demand and necessity. When we look at it from the demand point of view, India is an attractive market for train manufacturers. Because rapid urbanization is taking place, there is an extensive land mass that needs railway connectivity. Then there is high population density. Population density is the number of people per unit of area. In simple terms, there are a lot of passengers and commuters who will make use of the train service. So any investment in such a domain will be a profitable and long-lasting investment. However, you will have to keep in mind that this is India. The private companies will have to keep the prices affordable for the general population. Otherwise, it will not be a lucrative investment. But anyhow, for a private company, any investment in Indian Railways will turn out to be profitable. So this is the demand side. Now let's look at the necessity side. We need to first look at the public debt. The national debt of India for year 2019 with respect to its GDP is 69.04%. Now don't get scared by looking at the figure. If you look at the same graph for many other so-called developed countries, it will be even worse. For example, the American debt to GDP ratio is at 105.4%. France has it around 98.3%. Germany has it around 65 to 70%. Japan has it around 238%. Now there are countries whose debt to GDP ratio is less, like Russia, Canada, UAE, etc. The debt to GDP ratio is the ratio between a country's government debt and its gross domestic product. A low debt to GDP ratio indicates that an economy produces and sells goods and services sufficient to pay back debts without incurring further debt. A high debt to GDP ratio isn't necessarily bad as long as the country's economy is growing. Debt is necessary for long-term growth. For example, you would only take loan to expand your business if you see that your business has the potential to earn that much, wherein you can pay off your debt. We saw that India's debt to GDP ratio is at almost 70%. Again, it is not necessarily a bad indicator, but it is not a very good indicator too. especially right now due to lockdown when the economy is badly hit. The debt will remain the same or it may grow, but the income is not growing at that level. Outflow of cash will always be there, but there has to be an adequate inflow of cash too. Now the idea is to grow the economy without increasing the national debt. I mean, that would be the ideal scenario. For that, first you need to look at your existing infrastructure that is causing loss. And now when you turn your attention towards the Indian Railways, you will realize that the operational cost of the Indian Railway is very high than its earnings. If you can recollect, Indian Railways announced hike in passenger ticket price from 1st January 2020 for the first time in 5 years. Obviously, they have increased the ticket price to generate more revenue. And that too when major revenue contributions of the Indian Railways is from freight and parcel, and not from passenger tickets. That means Indian Railways is facing revenue shortfall. That also means the operating cost has increased. Apart from increasing the ticket prices and freight charges, you also have to explore other possibilities to earn revenue. You cannot simply keep on increasing the ticket prices and put the burden on the passenger, because that may backfire and people's demand for using the railways would fall. So there has to be other areas to explore possibilities, and that is where the private companies have an advantage. Because they have capital, money. Money is a good incentive to make more efficient choices, to maximize profit and minimize losses. That is why the Government of India wants to offer private companies to operate passenger trains. In return, the government will receive fixed transportation charges, then energy charges as per consumption, and a share in revenue. In other words, the government wants to limit its function to monitoring and rule making. It slowly wants to move away from management. In 2019, you must have heard so many times that the cabinet has approved many strategic disinvestment of PSUs like Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, Shipping Corporation of India, Container Corporation of India, and many more if you look up. So the whole point behind privatization is that the government wants to limit its function to monitoring and lawmaking. Privatization improves efficiency, brings productivity as well as higher profitability. Now the only thing that we need to see is how broad will be the government's role in a capitalist economy.